Welcome back to another episode of the Wolverine.com podcast. Clayton Safey here with Ant Wright, former college basketball player at Michigan and On3's basketball analyst, of course. So he's joining us again. We're going to talk about Michigan losing to Ohio State last Saturday, but now we're on to a couple big road games against Iowa tonight, Thursday. We're recording Thursday afternoon, and then Sunday afternoon against Wisconsin. Can they steal one of those two games or both, heading into a stretch of 4 straight home games, which will be a big topic of discussion later on in the show here. But we'll start a little bit with that Ohio State game because Michigan had a great opportunity, I thought, Saturday night, and we talked about it on the podcast last week, to kind of really get through that week, and just that's the week that saved your season. It helped. It kept you right there. It moved you up, on closer to the right side of the bubble. But without that win against Ohio State, I thought they're still, kind of teetering there. They're still staying afloat. One of the things we talked about with that game last week was you were saying you can't have a letdown where you feel good about the Purdue game. And then we also talked about some of that, though, is going to be physical and natural because it's your 4th game in 8 days. Nobody was about to make any excuses after the game. I asked Eli Brooks that. That was the first question that, hey, you guys played a bunch of games in the last 8 days. Do you feel like the legs weren't there? Because they were not shooting it well. They were 8 of 35 on shots that weren't dunks or layups. And he said, no excuses. At the same time, it's got to be natural. So I wanted to get your thoughts on that. From watching that game and having the experience as a player and playing with some short turnarounds, I guess what were your thoughts, Ant, on how they looked in terms of if their legs were there or why the offense just wasn't quite there on Saturday night?
Yeah, so I thought execution-wise, they were okay. I felt defensively they were good. And I kind of hinted this with my article a few days ago where I talked about, like, sometimes the starters need someone from the bench or 2 guys from the bench to just come out and just put the team on their back for like 3 or 4 minutes. And I think that was such a great opportunity. There was like a 5 or 6 minute stretch where both teams were 2-2. And in that one stretch, one team goes +8, +10. That could be the ball game. And I just feel that like that's been kind of a theme this year when it comes to the bench. Not like you don't have to come in like every game and score 10, 12 points. I'm just saying, come in and get a few big rebounds. Come in the game and shut somebody down. Come in the game and give the team energy by diving on the floor and being consistent with that. Being consistent with your confidence, consistent with your focus. You can't always control when the ball is going in or out or anything like that. But what you can do is you can have a consistent mindset coming into each game. And I hate to kind of like talk about Michigan State, but if you look at what Jaden Akins does for that Michigan State team, he may have scored 2 or 4 points, but he comes in the game and just gets 2 or 3 50-50 balls, a couple hustle plays, and he does the little things. Like there's nobody on this team who's doing that every single game. From game to game, it's like, okay, who's are they going to be in it? Are they going to turn the ball over a bunch of times? Are they going to be soft again? Or, is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? It's just it's just so many question marks off the bench. We're 23 games in. That's kind of something that should have been taken care of by now, where that, okay, we know for a fact that 2 of these guys are going to be focused at all times. So when the starters need a boost, the starters need some type of pick-me-up, those guys can, come in and be that guy. And, EJ Liddell, people were tweeting me that, like, Michigan's defense and their interior defense. I'm like, look, dude had 28, 11 came from the free throw line. The team that itself had 57 through 37 of the minutes. Like, this wasn't a defensive game. This was, hey, who's going to make more plays offensively? And when you are in winning time and you have someone like Hunter, who usually averages, 26, 27 minutes, 28 per game, and you look at his minutes over the last 4 games, I believe he is sat for 19 total minutes. And you see his efficiency also drop. Like, those two are correlating together, where he's using his legs more and more and more. It's one of those things where, like, can Brandon come in and hold the fort for longer than just 90 seconds? Can Frankie or even Kobe come in the game, and if they're going to take altogether the backcourt plays 80 minutes, if they're going to take 20 minutes of those 80, they got to go in there and not just be a body out there. Go out there and be productive in what you can. Like, if your job is to come in and take care of the ball and swing the ball and initiate offense, doesn't matter if you score or do anything else, you are an integral part to that team. But I just don't see that consistency right now, and that hurts, because I didn't feel Ohio State came out like they blasted Michigan.
No.
I don't feel like they came out like all overhyped to win this game and just took control. I feel like both teams kind of were feeling each other's temperature out for a majority of that game. And it wasn't anything that I felt like. I felt watching that game, Michigan should have won that game, because I don't think Ohio State was ready to play. That's just from my standpoint. But I don't think Michigan came out with that same vigor and that same focus to go and take that game from them. And they couldn't get within 5-6 points, and that's when you need that little boost. That little boost can get you to that one possession game or a tied game, and then let the starters take back over and do what they do.
They didn't. I don't think they got within 5 or closer than 5 in the last 15 minutes of that game. So that was obviously huge. They couldn't quite hit that dagger to get them, as you said, right back in it and get the crowd. That I don't want to blast the crowds, but man, they have not been great. Even though that was good in terms of numbers, the best I've seen this season. Get them going a little bit. Get that momentum back on your side. They weren't able to do it, and as you mentioned, the bench is a huge part of that. So they've been outscored on the bench 7 straight games by a margin of 162 to 51 in that span. So, I mean, we're talking about real regression from the bench. They had the Brandon Johns games earlier in the season where he had, a couple of good games. Terrence Williams did the same thing, and sometimes they were both doing that.
38. They had 38 one game.
Against Nebraska?
38.
Yeah.
Yeah, but outside of that, like, I don't think it's been more than, like,
Indiana, those two played well. Especially in the late first half stretch. But it's been, other than that, really not a ton of production from them. So it's concerning. It's kind of one of those things. Like, I don't expect it to get much better going down the stretch here. That's why it's important to kind of weather those storms when you can, when you have to play 3 games in however many days. They have another one of those 3-game weeks coming up because of the postponed Michigan State game that'll be played on March 1st. So it's kind of something you just got to work through at this point. But as you said, I mean, each guy has had a game or two. Kobe Buffkin has looked good at times. Frankie Collins, hell, he almost, people were calling for him to take the job back in December from Devontae Jones. So these guys have potential. What's that? People
are crazy.
I know, but I mean, we're talking about, like, he had some good stretches of basketball when you look at the San Diego State game, in games like that. So it's something that maybe you can get it here or there, but I don't think it's anything Michigan can rely on at this point. I wanted to ask you before we move on to Iowa. I agree with you on the defense. I thought the defense against Ohio State took a step forward. It wasn't just good, or it wasn't just okay. I thought it was pretty good. They didn't allow Ohio State to get many 3-point attempts. They averaged over 22 a game. I think they got 11, if I'm not mistaken. So, kind of that was the game plan. It looked like leave E.J. Liddell in single coverage. Of course, he burned you, and he made some big shots down the stretch. And you got to put your hand up. He did.
Tough shot.
And I thought Musa played pretty well defensively against him, but he's just a tough matchup. He got points on other guys too. Your thoughts on the defense, why it has been better over the last 3 games, and then really I was kind of diving into some of the numbers earlier in the week. It has been better here and there. I know they've had a couple outlier games, but over the last 7-8 games. So I guess, what do you think the reason is? I believe they're rebounding a lot better when you look at the numbers. They're actually the number 1 defensive rebounding team in the Big Ten right now. Your thoughts on why Michigan seems to be playing a little better on that side of the ball? I mean, remember they were outside of out of 100th in defensive efficiency just a week or two ago. So obviously some improvements.
Honestly, do you want my honesty?
Of course.
Okay. Last 4 games, I put this in the article. Last 4 games, starters have played 81% of the minutes because he's not rotating guys in as much. So you're having your guys who get the most minutes, who are playing the most defense, like they're just having a better defensive group out there at all times. And because he's not going to the bench as much, you're not seeing those crazy like runs from other teams. Much better in defensive transition. Why is that? Because they no longer play 3 power forwards together. Finally, right? Because 3 power forwards hurt you so much from in 3 power forwards hurt because in defensive transition, when you're getting back on defense, you now have 2 power forwards who have to guard a perimeter player. Who's going to be the one identifying that? Who's identifying the rim runner? Who's identifying the trail? And now you're a bit clunkier. So now defensive transition is a little bit tougher. Now you have a power forward guarding a legit 3 or a guard. If that team's going 3 guards, it's a lot tougher to stay in front of guys. Your help defense is a lot different if you're guarding a 4 than if you're guarding a legit 3. The way you close out is not the same. The way you guard a sweep is not the same. The way you guard, someone trying to ISO you is very, very different. Like, you're not going to guard Isaiah Livers and Franz Wagner the same way. Even though they're both forwards on the wing, those are 2 very, very different players. So, like, imagine 3 power forwards guarding last year's lineup. One was going to guard Hunter. One's got to guard. Imagine T. Will having to close out on Franz for 10 minutes. Like, it's just not going to go well. So, they have much better balance when it comes to their personnel. Their rotations have gotten a lot better. And so that just helps all by itself. But on top of that, they're playing their starters a lot more, like a lot more.
That's a point that I hadn't thought of. I've noticed better defense, and obviously more than me in terms of the intricacies of why, but it's like, I've noticed that, but I've also noticed that the starters are playing a ton of minutes and didn't really make that correlation between the two. But I think that is it's probably a big factor. And I agree with you. The lineups have been better. It was almost damn near right after our podcast about a month or so ago when you were laying out, these are the lineups. This is what needs to, and it was pretty similar to that. So maybe Jawan's a listener.
Hey, it's all love. It's all love.
It was all positive. It was just, hey, like, just giving our thoughts. And, obviously some of the tweaks that you suggested, obviously he doesn't listen, but some of the tweaks, you never know.
Hey, look, I'm just saying, full disclosure, I do have colleges who send me stuff and they want my like thoughts and opinions on things just from like an outsider standpoint. So like that does happen. Happen. Michigan has not done that. I will say that they have not done that. So
no, I wasn't trying. I'm not trying to discount your expertise whatsoever. No,
I'm just saying.
No, I got you.
I'm just.
Let's talk about, I guess sticking probably with defense here when you look at Iowa, because they're an offensive team. The biggest challenge when you think about the Hawkeyes is that you're going to have to D them up, check them up. They don't play much defense themselves. We can talk about that. But I look at this Iowa team and I say this is a great opportunity to prove that you've made some improvements to that transition defense. They got burned for 23 fast break points against Michigan State. Iowa's averaging 20.3 points per game in transition. They shoot the ball pretty well. Keegan Murray is incredible, leading the Big Ten in points per game at 23. He's also had like 30-some in some games against bad teams. So, and that's basically the Iowa way, right? You beat up on terrible teams by 40 points. And I'm not saying they're not a good team, especially on offense, but take me through, I guess, what you see from the Iowa offense, Keegan Murray, what makes them so dangerous.
Well, last 3 games, he's averaged over 30. I think he had 24, 30, then 37. So I hope that trend doesn't keep going up.
And those are against, so they're on a 3-game win streak. Those are the 3 bottom teams in the Big Ten. I'm not, like, the Big Ten is deep this year. Like, Northwestern's one of the worst teams, and they're like, 67th or whatever in the net. So I'm not saying these are bad teams, but they do that.
For sure. I'm in an NBA draft group, and it's a lot of fun just like seeing them just argue in there, just like going off on each other. And there's like over 50 accounts in there, and like sometimes I have to scroll up because I've like missed like 300 messages. And one of the points that continuously is an arguing point in there is that Keegan Murray he's not the same player against like the top 50 or top 60 in competition or something. That he's averaging more like 16 and like 6 rather than your 30 and 10. So I do think that that's going to help, and I think you got to put Musa on him.
Yes, you
early.
have to.
And then let Caleb guard Patrick McCaffrey.
Yep.
I like Patrick McCaffrey. He's athletic, and he's an MFer. He talks junk. I like watching him play a lot. I will say this though, defensively, this is one of Fran's better defensive teams. I think because last year they were like 200th or something in defensive efficiency. This year they're on 128 or 127 in the country. Still not like,
which is just hilarious that's one of his better
right? Exactly. Still not some juggernaut, but they've done a better job. And they also go zone. They mix in zone quite a bit.
Yeah, like a fifth of the time. Yeah.
And if you're going to play zone against Michigan against zone this year, although they faced it 2.2% of the possessions. I don't have this written down. It's 2.2% of the possessions, and Michigan is ranked, I believe, 2nd or 3rd in the country against zone defense. So I hope they play a bunch of zone because Michigan has been completely shredding it. Ohio State ran it twice, and Michigan got elite looks both times, and they went 1 for 2 from 3. I believe Caleb missed a wide open 3 in the first half, and then Eli hit a wide open 3 in the second half. They should not crash with more than 2 guys. I think Musa should always crash because he has the energy to do so. If Hunter is at the free throw line and in, crash. If he's free throw line and out, just get back on defense. So we have four back, and make sure you're recognizing who's who. You gotta close out. Bohannon, he hit 10 threes against, I believe, Maryland. Went 10 for 16, which was a wild game. So you got to be on his toes. He's not shooting great this year. He's not assisting as much. He's looking for his shot a lot more. But they play 10 guys at least 10 minutes. So it's like a bit like a Florida State type of deal where they rotate guys in and out a lot. But Keegan Murray is the only one who plays over 26 minutes. I think he plays 30 or 31. Because he's really freaking good, but Iowa's a good team. Iowa's a good team. They're 7-6. They don't do well against good teams, and you need that to kind of continue. If you consider yourself a good team, where I think that Michigan is right in that middle tier of Indiana, Iowa, Michigan. Michigan wants to work to be a top 7 seed, not top 8. And the main reasoning behind that is if you like math, so there are 9 contenders, right? Nine contenders for an at-large bid. If you are the 8 seed, you are going to play a 9 seed who is going to be a what? A contender for an at-large bid.
It's a
You
good
do
point.
not want to play that game
You
in
want
the
to be
Big
the
Ten
7
tournament.
and the 10. Yeah.
Exactly. You want to be the 7 and the 10. So now you're playing a Northwestern. You're playing a, not saying Northwestern's not good, but I think an Indiana is going to be more hungrier than a Northwestern team, knowing that Indiana just needs 1 or 2 wins, where Northwestern needs to win the whole thing. You know
It's
what
a
I
good
mean?
point. It's a good
So
point. Yeah.
you do not want to be an 8 seed. You want to be in that top 7, so you get the 7-10, and then you play the 2 seed the following day. Like that's what you want to do. So this is a really big game for that. And they play Iowa once, right?
No, they get them back at home, I believe, right?
Okay. Do
They
they?
get them back at home on March 3rd, so 2 days after Michigan State, 3 days before the finale at Ohio State.
Okay, sweet. Okay. So
And that's a really winnable game, I think. And if you steal
yeah,
this, you feel good about your chances there even more, I would think.
exactly. So I'm not going to say that this is not a must win, but I'm saying that if you can get this one, you can double up Iowa. And that will be a great look, and that'll get you out of that 8-9 seed game, and that'll get you into that 6 or 7 seed range. And this is also nuts. Michigan's only 2 games back from the Big Ten championship. Despite everything that's gone on, there's like 5 or 6 teams tied for 4th, which makes you put things in perspective. Like once again, like this is why you can't lose games that you shouldn't. Look at Minnesota. There's no reason to lose that game. No reason to lose that game at all whatsoever. Look at the Ohio State game just now. Is Ohio State good? Yeah, they're pretty good, but they didn't do anything impressive to go and take that game. Those are 2 games. You're tied at first, which is nuts. Absolutely
Crazy.
bananas to even think about.
That's why winning at home, holding serve at home is so massive in this conference.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why Iowa has the edge on Michigan. They've been better at home, and they haven't really won on the road. They got their first road win in the Big Ten against Maryland last week. And that lends more credence to the theory that you steal this one, you got a hell of a shot, and you're going to be favored going into that game against Iowa at home on March 3rd. So
exactly. Look at Rutgers, bro. Like
Rutgers is ridiculous. I tweeted it the other day. I was like, what if they're just simply a good team? And then they go and do that to Illinois. So now they have 4 straight wins over top 17 teams in the country. Yeah. Michigan State, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Illinois, right? So
sick. And insane. Guess who Gonzaga played last night?
Pepperdine.
Pepperdine has 0 quad 1, 2, or 3 wins.
I love it's not Gonzaga hate, but you're a Gonzaga realist. You're a truther, I guess.
And I love Gonzaga. I mean,
they're so good.
They're so good. They run such good offense. Their fans are the worst fans on the planet.
They're the ones with Twitter accounts, at least.
Yes.
They're rough, and I see you going at them, and I like it.
Yeah. Because whenever someone tweets about Gonzaga, like their replies are just so bad.
I mean, it was last year. We found that out last year when it was. Michigan was in that top group, Baylor, Gonzaga, Michigan there for a couple weeks, remember,
Yeah.
And I found out the same thing. If you tweet anything negative about Gonzaga's resume, if you tweet facts about their resume, it's seen as hate.
You talk about the WCC, like they will say WCC is awesome. Look at Duke and North Carolina. You think ACC and SEC? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, what are you talking? Look, it is okay to admit that the WCC is not a good conference. Like, yes, you have BYU and St. Mary's. Like, look, you're not playing Matthew Dellavedova and Patty Mills every year, okay?
No.
Yes, it's St. Mary's. I get that. But in like BYU, like, you're not playing the Hawes brothers every year. Like, that is not happening, okay? So, like no team outside of Gonzaga has really made a run in modern history. Like no real legit runs. And they try to compare them to like the Big East. And like I just like ripped out like the whole Big East rap sheet. Didn't even include Villanova, which like made them even like more mad. And it was better than anything the WCC has done. UConn itself.
It's
Man,
true.
I'm sorry for the tangent, but yeah.
And I mean, it's not even like it's all true. I also think that they'll probably be the favorite to win it all. So both things can be true at once. Like they haven't played anybody. You can't deny that. They played some November games, but then you look back when it gets to March, it's like, well, that was damn near half a year ago when you played those teams.
Exactly.
Give or take.
Exactly. Gonzaga since 2001. Remember, they are 1-12 versus teams with that are top 3 seeds in the NCAA tournament.
Even in the NCAA tournament?
1-12 in the NCAA tournament.
Oh, in the NCAA. Wow.
They have one win versus a top 3 seed in like the last 20 years. 12 losses.
I love how you have all the facts on them.
Oh, yes. Talking points to just piss people. Oh, my gosh. Gonzaga fans are fun to piss off. So fun to piss off. Man.
Absolutely.
We should get him some Manscaped.
We should. We absolutely should. I do want to bring it back to Michigan and wrap up with the remaining schedule because I feel like it's the question that we keep getting. How many do you think Michigan needs? What's it going to take? You have Iowa tonight. You have Wisconsin on Sunday. 2 road games, as we talked about. You steal one, I think you feel pretty good because you do have 4 straight home games. Rutgers, which does not look as easy as it did a week and a half ago, on next Wednesday. Then Sunday, you get Illinois that comes to town. That's been a tough matchup for Michigan, and they're just a really good team. Michigan State on Tuesday, March 1. Thursday, March 3rd is that Iowa game we referenced earlier, and then Ohio State in Columbus to finish off the regular season. So you can look at it one of 2 ways, and you can probably look at it both ways at the same time. It's a really tough schedule, but you have these games at home. You have a stretch where we're home for 2 weeks almost, just about, and like let's get 3 of these things. That's why I think stealing one on the road here is big. In that game in Columbus, like you can go in, and not the team, but we're talking about fans and us in the media and stuff. Like you can go into that game thinking, all right, they don't need this one. They could maybe just get one in Indy and call it good. And that'd be 12 wins against Big Ten opponents if you can do that. So if you can go 4-3, I think Michigan is going to get in if they win 11 games total against Big Ten opponents, which is 4 more. That could include one in Indy. I think they're automatically in if they get 5 more, which would bring them up to 12. However you want to slice it, if you want to talk about getting some of those in the Big Ten tournament or just getting the 5 and just go 5-2 to close this thing out in the regular season, that's what I feel at this point. And there's been a couple other bubble teams that have lost in recent days as well. You got to keep an eye on that too. Your thoughts on what Michigan needs to do here with this remaining schedule? It's an opportunity to get some huge wins. It's also a tough task to pick up any of them.
Well, I'm going to stick with what I've been saying for a good couple weeks now. In the last 10 games, they have to go 6-4. 6-4 the last 10. No matter how you get those games, but you can't lose to Penn State. And before I said you can't lose to Rutgers. But, I mean, you still don't want to lose that game. So you are 6-4, right? 6-4 in the last 10 games would put them at, I believe, 17-13 going into the Big Ten tournament.
And that'd be 11-9. So it's the same number I'm kind of talking about, right? Because they won 2 since that spot, the 10-game thing, because they have 7 left. So yep.
And then you win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament. That puts them at 19 and 14.
Yeah.
And that gets them in as a 9 or a 10 for sure. That and the one thing about that is that Michigan doesn't have bad losses. Like their one bad loss is to Minnesota. But their quad 3 and quad 4s, they only have just 1 loss there. There are bubble teams around the country who have a lot of quad 3 and quad 4 games and have a couple of losses there as well. But I think what's great about Michigan's schedule is that they don't have any really bad losses available. Rutgers is moving up. I feel pretty much daily. Let me see where they're at on the net. Because
Yeah,
last time I checked, they were 81,
I
right?
looked earlier. They only moved up like 6 or 7 spots in the
They
last day
did.
after the. What are they
Yeah,
at?
they're at 75. They're at
Okay,
75. Which 75, that means that Michigan's first game against them moves into a quad one
quad
loss.
one. Yeah.
Right. Will still be a quad two game for Michigan coming up, but that first game becomes a quad one loss. So that's not saying that's better for Michigan because it's still a loss, but at the end of the day, now that's just another quad one game to look at. And Michigan is number 37 on the net. They dropped by one last night. Dropped one. So
Mm-hmm.
the opportunity is there. The opportunity is there still. 2-7 now in quad one games, 8-1 in quad three and quad four. I think that's huge. Where like a team like Memphis, they're 9-2 in quad three and quad fours. You know.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. So it's going to be interesting. They're kind of still pushing for that number. It looks realistic. You have 3 road games left. Win 1, win 3 out of your 4 home games. And I know they're against tough opponents, but you feel good about the one against Iowa. You know, you should feel good about the Michigan State game, to be quite honest with you, at home as
Yeah.
well. Real quick, because depending on when people are listening to this, because it's coming out just before the Iowa game, what do you see from Wisconsin? It's kind of funny to me. They were winning all those games earlier on in the season, and the advanced metrics just wouldn't move them up. And Iowa, is the same thing. They were beating worse teams, but the way they play offense, the metrics move them up so high. So it's deceiving because Wisconsin, I think, can beat anyone. Johnny Davis is really good. What do you see from the Badgers?
I mean, it is a rock fight. I think Tyler Wall is like an X factor there at the 4 spot. I
Yep.
think that's a really good matchup for Musa. Um, but their guy Johnny Davis is very good. But he can get very high volume, low efficient. And when it comes to a Wisconsin team that really can't afford that, when he's high volume, low efficiency, it kind of breaks down the entire Wisconsin kind of way that they do things. But when he played at Michigan State, he was very calm. He was very calm. He wasn't doing the try hard stuff. He kind of picked his spots and he did a much better job. So I'm sure the coaches talked with him. Then you have Brad Davis, who's been there for like 18 years now. He's always willing to take a big shot. He's going to play physical, and he's going to, some questionable things may or may not happen. But at the
Always.
same
They're
time,
always going to the monitor. Any tight game, the last 5 minutes, they're going to the monitor to look at some Brad Davison, whether or not he flailed his leg out or there's
it's
always
always
something.
something. It's always something with him. But they have a freshman point guard, Chucky Hepburn, out of I believe he's from like Nebraska. He's been solid. Lauren Bowman, who played at Orchard Lake St. Mary's, he's coming back home for a big game because he didn't play last year. This will be his first game back at Chrysler. So that should be fun for him, and I'm sure that his family is going to be there deep. Um, I just think both of these games, if it's attacked the right way, there are some teams in some games where I'm like, look, this is a tough matchup for Michigan. Looking at Wisconsin and Iowa, they can for sure find a split here. Wisconsin doesn't get really loud anymore. And Iowa, if you're able to stop their transition and you're able to force Murray into very tough shots, and he's struggling from his mid-range game and getting to the basket, that's a game that Michigan can win. And if they come out with the split, that's a win because you have a road win, a quad one road win, and that'll just move you up. And that's going to move you past several other bubble teams who are either playing quad 3 games or they're losing their quad 1s and quad 2s. So yeah, Wisconsin's a good team. I'm not saying that they're not, because Johnny Davis is a pro. He's going to go in the top 10 somewhere this upcoming summer, but they're gonna need to contain him for sure. And then Tyler Wall, if Musa contains him, I think Michigan should win that game, even if it's on the road. And Hunter should eat, which he always should. But against that team, they don't really have anyone for him, whether it's on the perimeter or whether it's in the mid post or on the block. He should be able to feast down there.
And for Musa, stay out of foul trouble. Wisconsin's bigs, including Tyler Wall, always crafty down low, which you don't always say about a big guy. And Hunter Dickinson, is he going to have his legs back tonight against Iowa? He's made only 15 of his last 42-point field goal attempts, which is just surprising out of him. He's made some threes in that stretch, which have been huge for him. He's still putting up big scoring numbers.
15 out of what, 40?
40 of his last 40 in the last 3 games, 2-point attempts.
What's that? That's 30. That's
37.5%. Yeah,
37.5.
It's kind of something that is kind of surprising, because even in some of those, he's been putting up big scoring numbers, a lot of points, but it hasn't come on the best efficiency. Now, hitting some threes really helps his efficiency numbers, but
yeah, it does.
Something to watch for sure. So enjoy the game tonight, everybody, Thursday, and enjoy the weekend, and hope for the Michigan fans' sake that it will be capped off with the win over Wisconsin on Sunday as well. Join us at thewolverine.com for more Michigan basketball coverage. $1 gets you an entire year of premium access over there, so go and do that right now.